All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to another fantastic Sunday Night Cook-Along Live. I'm Robert, I'm your host, and joining me tonight is actually my dad and my stepmom. They are here from their journeys across the sea. Where have you all been?
Just about everywhere.
Just about everywhere. Let me know if you guys can hear them or not. Doesn't matter, but it'll be fun. Just about everywhere. So how far, you guys sold your house, bought an RV, and went on a tour, right?
Yep. We started in Southern California, all the way through Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Montana, Idaho,
Wyoming,
That sounds
out to Oregon.
Washington State.
Sounds like quite the trip. Then you guys stopped by Oregon and continued back home.
Yep.
We did.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's get started with our food tonight. We're going to be making a chicken tortilla soup, and we're going to switch to that so that the music stops. Perfect. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to preheat our cast iron or whatever pot you got, and we're going to go ahead and get that up to high, medium high if you can. We're just going to let it warm up for a little bit. While we're waiting on that, we're going to pour ourselves a beer. I've got a Negra Modelo. I'm going light tonight. Don't want to make a fool of myself in front of the guests, you know. What are y'all drinking? How has your week been? And who is actually cooking with me? I know I posted the ingredients a little bit late this week, but hopefully some of you all decided to jump in, or you're planning on doing something this week. So let me know what you got going on. We're going to let this kind of warm up, come up to temperature. And as soon as that gets warm, we're going to start searing off our chicken. You'll notice that I'm using chicken that has the skin still on it. What I want to do is get the caramelization on the skin into the pot, but I don't want to start browning the meat. I want the meat to stay nice and white. We're actually going to shred it and put it into the chicken tortilla soup, but we don't want it to have all of those, grill marks on it. We don't want it browned. We want that to be nice and moist and soft, but we do want to get some of the fond, some of the burned bits off of the chicken skin. So we're going to use the skin as kind of like an insulation bit in the pan so we can get the fond and not actually sear off or color the chicken. Hey Kim, how's it going? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Pot's getting hot, so we're going to go ahead and throw some olive oil in. Just about a tablespoon, not too much. Now we'll go ahead and grab our chicken skin side down and put it straight into the pan. Now you definitely want to be hearing that sizzling. And we're going to keep our cast iron skillet here on high. We're just going to let those guys sit there for a couple of minutes while the skin gets nice and brown. We're going to set the plate over to the side for now. Now, while we're waiting on that, while we're waiting on these guys to brown, I'm just going to set that up there. We're going to go ahead and mince our garlic down, and we're also going to chop up a jalapeno and dice an onion. So these are the three other elements that we want to put into our chicken tortilla soup right off the bat. Let's go ahead and just lightly tap these guys down. And what that does is it basically releases the skin from the clove. You should be able to peel these things super, super easy. We'll switch over to there so you guys can see what I'm doing from above. Now we're going to mince this down so it doesn't matter if you crush it, doesn't matter if you flatten it or anything like that, because the ultimate goal is basically to crush it. So we're going to go ahead and just flatten it with our knives anyway. And then once you got all your flat garlic, all you got to do is chop right through it one way. And then you can do two things. You can either spin it if you want, or you can just put your 3 fingers on the tip and rock the blade up and down and go across so you're getting a nice fine dice on the garlic. Go ahead and wipe it all off with a knife. Always wipe away from the blade so you don't cut yourself. I'm just going to set this over here on the side. Getting quite a bit of steam and sizzling from the chicken, so I'm going to turn it down to medium high. I don't want to burn the skin, I just want to get some of those nice brown bits off of it. awesome, Kim. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's a fun one to make. I'm gonna do my onion next, and basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just kind of take off the tip here, where the little dry bit is. I'm gonna put him down on the flat side and then cut him in half, like so. Don't roll it off the cutting board. And then with these halves, we're gonna put those flat side down. We're gonna make 1 or 2 cuts horizontally. Put your hand on top of the onion, cut across. We'll do it twice. Keeping your hand flat makes it almost impossible for you to cut yourself because the knife is going horizontal and your hand is parallel to the knife, so very hard to cut yourself. And then we're gonna come up from the top, cut it lengthwise, and then dice it down. Now this doesn't need to be super finely diced. It's fine if they're chunky because we're going to be cooking them down. And we'll just keep dicing it all the way. Like so. You'll notice that if you dice an onion very well, you only get a little bit of stuff to throw away. Alright, I'm looking in my pot. I see the edges are starting to brown, which means that the skin is probably browning nicely, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a check. That looks great. That's what you want. You want that nice color on the chicken. I'm going to take it off. I'm actually going to put it right back on the same plate that it came from. We're going to be cooking all of this later in the actual soup, so the fact that it's touching raw chicken doesn't make any difference at the moment. So there we go. Now we've got some of the brown bits in the pan, which is perfect, and that's what we want. We're going to just scoop up our onion right into the pan. You want to hear that sizzle? And the onion is actually going to take some of those brown bits and release them off of the bottom, the acid in the onion. We're going to put the onion in first. I'm going to chop my jalapeno up as well. Just going to take off the top, cut this guy in half. Basically flatten him down as best I can with my fingers and just cut out the seeds in the middle part. We can get rid of that, compost it, throw it away, whatever you do with it. We're going to do the same thing with this other side. Now I've got 2 very, very easy to dice pieces of jalapeno. I'm actually going to turn this down to medium so I don't burn anything. And grab a spatula, give it a good stir. You'll notice that the onions are starting to color, and that's actually the chicken fond being released off the bottom of the pan. If your onions are a little bit more dry, mine are actually doing really well, but if you got some dry onions, go ahead and add a little bit more oil. You don't want them sticking to the pan, you want them to be able to be moved around real nicely. Thank you, Cindy, in the live studio audience here. So for our peppers, same thing. We're just going to be chopping lengthwise, turning them 90 degrees, and then chopping them the other way. Get a nice little dice. If you want more heat, go ahead and leave all of the seeds in. But we're also going to be putting in some tomatoes with diced jalapenos in there as well, diced chilies, so it might get a little bit spicy. So we're gonna make it mild, more on the mild side tonight. Plus, I think my stepmom is not a fan of hot stuff, so. Go ahead and chop our other half of our jalapeno. Exact same way that we did the first one. Diced it down, perfect. So you'll notice I'm adding the jalapenos and the onions first, and I'm actually going to leave the garlic out till last. The garlic cooks the quickest out of these vegetables, and you don't want to burn it, because then you get a really acrid flavor. You just want to give it a nice little bit of color once you get to the point where you're ready to put it in. So, put that there. Let me get this out of my way. Let me get this out of my way. Same thing with the second half of the onion. Once across again. This is a larger onion, so I'm going to give it a couple of slices. And then we'll come in vertically like so, 90 degrees, and just cut it. Now you'll notice that I'm making a little claw with my hand, and this way you are very unlikely to cut yourself. As long as you keep all your fingers curled backwards and use the ridge of your knuckle as kind of a guide, it's almost impossible to cut yourself. And speed will come with time. Work on form first, and then work on going faster. And again, you'll have very little waste if you cut an onion the right way. Cool. Let me turn this back up to medium-high. I'll get this rest of the onion in here. What are y'all drinking tonight? I got a beer. I see that Kim's drinking red wine. What about other people? What's your poison this evening? There we are. Go ahead and get this nice and mixed in. Now earlier today, I've made my own chicken stock because for this soup we're using the breasts, but if I were going to get chicken breasts on its own, boneless, skinless, it was actually cheaper to buy the whole chicken and break it down. So I had a bunch of leftover chicken, so I took that, made a broth real quick, and we're going to be using that tonight. If you don't know how to make a broth, I'm going to be putting that video up on TikTok later, and probably in my Instagram story and Facebook story, but it's pretty easy to make stock. It's really not a mystery. If you don't want to make stock or it's too intimidating for you, you can definitely use the prepackaged stuff, the cans or boxes, cartons that you can get at the store. This is going to be a little bit more flavorful because you get to add your own vegetables and your own herbs, and it's going to taste a lot fresher. The stuff in a box is kind of mass-produced. They use a lot of stuff, and they do it at scale, so they're not able to really get the nuances of the flavors that they're doing. Hey, Jessica, I love champagne. No champagne for me tonight, though. Just a beer. All right, so we're going to let these all soften up. Probably give it another minute or two. Now what we're doing is we're adding chicken flavor to the soup before we're actually cooking the soup. That's why we were searing off the skin side of those chickens first. Leaves the chicken bits on the bottom, and then when you deglaze it with all of the onions and the veggies, and we're going to add a little bit of stock a little bit later, and that's actually going to release as well. You're adding that chicken flavor before the cooking is actually started. We're going to add a little bit of salt here as well. And we're going to season this as we go. A little bit of salt here, a little bit of pepper. And just give that a nice mix. So everything in here is nice and soft. It's starting to get translucent. None of it is burning. We got it at a good temperature. And the onions are starting to pick up those bits of chicken. At this point, we're going to toss our garlic in. We'll let that cook for about 2 minutes. And then we'll start building our soup. There we go. Now, while we're waiting for this to cook, what I want to do is I actually want to jump over to our sink cam, which I have set up over by my burners. And we're going to take some of these corn husks that we got here, and we're going to get these guys nice and blackened. Hello. All right, so we're going to turn on our burner, keep it on high. And we're just going to take off the husk part of the corn as best we can, and just throw the corn right over the burner. Any of the little corn threads, they're going to just burn right off. And any of the extra husk, go ahead and just peel that right off as well. I've got asbestos hands. Use tongs if you need to. I'm actually going to grab my tongs so I don't burn myself. And while I'm over by my stove, I'm going to give this a little stir. You might be able to hear the corn popping in the background. It is not actually turning into popcorn. What's happening is the steam inside the kernels is just bursting them. But what you do want is that nice blackened color on this. You're adding a little bit of char, a little bit of flavor. And we basically want, like, I don't know, 3/4 of the kernels to be kind of charred. And we'll just rotate it once it starts kind of popping at us. It looks like my left burner actually is outputting a little bit more heat than the right, which is kind of interesting. Go. This one up here, maybe that'll work better. Cool, cool. So obviously if you have a barbecue, you can do this outside, like that's totally cool. I didn't want to start that today, so my burners will work just fine. Pro tip for any of you kids who are watching, you can absolutely do s'mores over your burners like this. Parents, don't kill me, I'm sorry. Alright, got some nice seared corn, charred corn. And go ahead and take these guys back over to the cutting board. And we'll switch back to this view. Hello again. Alright, so we got our burned corn, we got this going. Nothing's burned yet, but we are going to give this a stir, because we don't want it to overcook or burn. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually slice the corn off of the cobs, but we're going to do that in just a sec. First thing I want to do is actually take some of this tomato paste. I want probably about a quarter cup right in the middle of my pot. So I'm actually going to clear all of my veggies away from the middle. Just squeeze this right into the middle. About a quarter cup. Now we're just going to kind of mash that in. And what that's going to do is kind of give it a nice toasty flavor. We don't want to cook it off. We don't want to like burn it. We just want to get it nice and warm before we mix it in. And now you're going to get a really nice kind of sweet caramelized tomato aroma, I guess, coming out of the pot. It smells really, really good. Alright, we're good on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our beans in. We're going to put our crushed tomatoes and the fire roasted tomatoes that have chilies mixed in. Just going to get all that stirred around. We're going to turn this down to medium. Then I've got one juice of a lime. That's going to go in. I'm going to start managing our bowls of stuff over here. We got some cumin, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of chili powder. That is not the same as cayenne pepper or anything like that. It is actually called chili powder. So don't make the mistake of putting the wrong thing in, because it'll make it way too spicy. All of this mixed around. Now, my stepmom is not a fan of cilantro, so we're going to leave the cilantro out till the end. But what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to take 3 cups of our chicken stock, put it in, and get this up to a simmer. So this ladle that I've got is exactly 1 cup, so all I got to do is do 3 of these ladles. And then we'll give this a nice little stir. Back up to medium-high or high until it starts simmering. And then we'll add our chicken back in. Now what we're doing is we're actually cooking the chicken in this broth, in this soup that we're making. And then we're going to take it out and shred it. So while that's coming back up, we're going to go ahead and take our corn, cut off one end, just a 1/4 inch or so, you don't need it. Hold it up straight so that you have a nice flat side of the corn to balance it on, I guess. And then just come right down the outside. And you're basically just scraping the corn kernels off of the outside of this corn. You can absolutely get pre-canned corn if you want, but this is going to taste way better. There we go. You want about a cup of corn, and that usually ends up being about 2 husks. Cobs? 2 cobs. This is going to add some awesome flavor since we roasted the outside of the kernels first, and it's going to give you a little bit of contrast with the color, having those little roasty bits in there. There we go. Now all of this will break apart as soon as you put it into the soup, so that's what we're going to do. Just get it right in. If I have a large pile, I'll just use my hands, and then as it gets smaller and smaller, I'll use a board scraper or bench scraper or my knife. There we go. Now the stock that I made earlier, I seasoned it very, very lightly. There's going to be enough salt in everything else that I don't want to oversalt that stock and then have a super salty soup at the end. So I kept that pretty light, and then at the end, if I need to add more salt, I can always do that. Go ahead and get our corn mixed in. Now this will, obviously we didn't cook it over on the range. This will be cooked here in the soup along with the chicken and everything else. I've got a dog pacing behind me. He's very interested in what's going on up here. All right, we're gonna go ahead and grab our chicken. We got our nice brown skin. We are gonna go ahead and put these in with the skin, and we're gonna basically peel the skin off when we take it out later. Put those guys in. And what's gonna end up happening is all those nice crusty bits on the skin are also gonna release and go into our soup. Go ahead and scrape off any juices or brown bits that are on the plate. And then we're going to go and toss this in the sink real quick. There we go. All right. Last but certainly not least, we're going to kind of chop up some onions here. We're going to put these in a little bit later. Green onions are super delicate, and the flavor that they have and the texture that they have will very quickly kind of denature and turn to mush if you put them into a hot bowl of anything. So when you're cooking with onions, you really don't want to put them in until kind of closer to the end. Same thing with herbs. If you're using cilantro, even if we weren't putting this in at the end because of my stepmom, I wouldn't be putting these in until the end anyway because I wouldn't want them to turn into mush. They'll basically just turn into goo and not be very, very good. All right, so we got our soup coming up. I'm going to turn it back down to medium just to get it to simmer. I don't want this going 1,000 miles a minute. I just want it kind of bubbling away gently. All right, I'll keep an eye on that. Now, my scallions here, my spring onions, my green onions, whatever you want to call them, I'm going to cut them at a diagonal angle like this because you'll get slightly larger pieces, and it looks cool. And as we know, if you make it look good, it's going to taste better. Just go ahead and slice through. There we go. We're just going to leave these here for now. We have about 20 minutes to wait for this chicken to cook, the soup to kind of marry all the flavors together and everything. So while we're doing that, while we're waiting on that, we're going to go ahead and get our lime ready. We already squeezed one for juice. We're going to use the second one for nice little wedges for presentation. We're going to cut up our avocado so that we have, again, slices to kind of put on for presentation. And we're going to make our own tortilla strips. Not chips, but strips. So we're going to start with these two, and then we'll get to that. And then by the time we're done with all of this, our chicken should be ready to come out, get shredded, put back in, and serving. So how do you cut wedges out of a lime? It's actually pretty easy. Cut the lime in half first. And now you've got a flat surface, put it down, cut it in quarters. You can either go diagonally like so and cut it 3 times, or you can basically face it straight up like so, tilt it to the angle you want, and then just slice down through it this way. And you'll get a nice lemon or lime wedge. Now, I know you've heard me say on previous cook-alongs that you should never cut on a curved surface. You should always have a nice flat surface to cut on. That is true. Unless you feel confident enough that this is not going to, fall over or rotate and cut yourself, and the upper surface is soft enough that the knife is going to go right through it. If you're cutting something a little bit more hard, like let's say a bell pepper or a cucumber, where there's a lot more effort to go through the actual fruit or vegetable, that's when it gets dangerous to cut on a curved surface. Carrots are notorious for rolling out of the way as you're trying to cut through them with a knife. So that is why I always say cut a flat edge first, because then it's super easy. Now, if you feel more confident, more comfortable coming in with your knife at an angle like so, and just cutting down like that, by all means go for it. You're going to have a nice flat surface. The lemon or the lime is not going to roll away from you, and you can cut perfect lime wedges this way as well. Really up to you, whatever you're most comfortable with. Let's see, we're going to have 3, so I'm going to cut, that's actually fine, 6. Be 2 for each. I'll set those on the side. Now for this lime here, so that it doesn't dry out, just get some cellophane, saran wrap, or even a plastic reuse bag, Ziploc or something. Just make sure that this flat cut end is flat on whatever that surface is, so that air doesn't get to it, and it'll keep it from drying out. It'll last a little bit longer. Avocado, we've done these before, but just to reiterate, go ahead and take your knife. You can put it flat down if you want, or you can hold it, depends on your confidence level. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to cut straight down until I hit the root, the stone in the middle, and then I'm just going to roll the avocado around like so. Now I've got a cut all the way through. I can just rotate this and pop it apart. Makes it super simple. Yeah, Jessica, he is definitely on a mission to find something that I've dropped, even though I haven't dropped anything yet. You can do whatever you want with the seed. I'm just going to set it on the side for now. And now we've got this awesome avocado. Now what I recommend you do, here's another example of when we're actually going to put the avocado face up. It's rolling, that's fine, but the avocado is soft enough that my knife is going to go right through it. I'm going to cut it into quarters. Now the reason I'm cutting it into quarters is because now I can very easily peel the skin right off of the outside. If you have it in a half like this, you're actually creating an arc, and an arc, or a whatever that shape is actually one of the most stable shapes in nature, and you're going to end up just mashing the avocado while you're trying to peel the skin off. But cutting it in half so that you don't actually have that full shape makes it super easy. And these things just flip upside down, inside out, and come right off. Won't work if the avocado is super ripe. Then it's just too soft. There's no winning that. Then as far as our avocado, it's basically going to be a garnish on the soup, so cut it however you like. If you like chunky avocado bits floating around in your soup, cut it all chunky. If you want nice thin little things that you can layer on top of the soup and make it look super pretty, do that as well. It's up to you. I'm actually going to do both. We're going to see which one looks better. And then that will end up being the Instagram shot. Love it when I have options. I'm just going to kind of fan these out like so. And I'm cutting them about 1/8 of an inch thick. You want something there. You don't want to make them super thin like sushi, where it's cut super thin so that it'll roll nicely. These ones here, you actually want to have some kind of a nice bit of avocado that you can taste, when you bite into it in the soup. Now this one here, I'm going to make them about 1/2 inch cuts. So, I'm also going to turn, so I've cut vertically this way. I'm actually going to flip it onto the other flat side, because now I can cut it vertically this way, the exact same thickness. So about 1/2 inch cuts, 1/4 inch cuts. Now I can dice it like this. I've got nice avocado dices for a few of the soups. I've got some nice avocado strips for some of the other ones. And I've got some little avocado bits for me. That is good. All right. Next up, corn tortilla strips. I wish I had enough time to make my own corn tortillas. but I don't, and I'm bad at it, so I'm not going to. I'm going to just take these pre-made corn tortillas. We're going to cut these into about 1/4-inch strips. Now, these strips are huge if you use the full length of the tortilla. So I'm actually just going to halve them because these are a bit more manageable in a small bowl of soup. And then it's really just, there's a 1/4-inch, 1/4-inch, 1/4-inch. And we're just going to, notice I'm chopping this the same way that I would do an onion. My hand is like a nice little claw. I'm using my knuckle as a guardrail, if you want to put it that way. It's easy to cut through the tortilla, get some nice little corn strips like so. Same thing with this one. And we'll just cut right through it. And there we go. Nice little corn strips. Perfect. We're going to head back over to the sink cam, which is actually the burner cam tonight. And we're going to get these things fried up. Give me just a sec as I move over here. I'm going to grab a pan. We're going to put it down on the burner. We're going to grab a little bowl or another pan and use it to hold our tortillas. While we're waiting, let me grab the rest of the tortillas over here on my cutting board. Wasn't quite able to do it all in one trip. There we go. We're going to go ahead and turn on our burner. Get this pan up to probably like a medium high. We're just going to use some canola oil in this case. I want a nice oil that doesn't have any flavor. And I want to coat the bottom of the pan with about 1/8 of an inch. That looks good. We're going to let that come up to temperature. Now we're going to start putting our tortillas in there. We want just one layer. We don't want to stack these on top of each other because number one, they'll stick, and number two, they won't fry properly. I'm going to come over and turn my soup down a little bit because it's going a little crazy. And I'm going to give it a stir just to make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom of the pot. And that's while I'm waiting for my oil to come up to temperature over there on the burner. All right, soup is dealt with. We're going to take one strip of corn tortilla, and we're going to see if our oil is warm enough. Not quite. We're going to leave it in there. We're going to wait until it starts kind of dancing. Once it dances, oil is up to temperature, and we can start adding more tortillas. That might take a couple of seconds on this gas burner. Not quite as quick as induction. Switch back over here for now. Who is going to try this tortilla soup? Because it smells really good. Might have went a little hard on the garlic. You might have heard us coughing a little bit earlier. We got some chemical warfare going on with some of those onion fumes and the garlic fumes, but you know, that's cooking. Sometimes that happens. Good beer. How's the champagne, Jessica? Well, hopefully I'll get you guys fed here pretty quick. Let's start talking about the Thanksgiving special that I'll be doing on Thanksgiving. I'm thinking about doing 5 or 6 dishes that are popular. So turkey, mashed potatoes, possibly green bean casserole, cranberry relish. I'm not a fan of the cranberry jam. I think that's kind of gross, but that's just me. If you like it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. But the cranberry relish with like oranges and stuff in it is delicious. Maybe some kind of a stuffing. So let me know what your favorite dishes are so that I can kind of plan around that. And maybe I'll add a couple of those to it as well. And we did pumpkin spice cupcakes last week, so I'm not sure. Do you guys want me to do a pumpkin pie or a pumpkin cheesecake for Halloween for Thanksgiving? Let me know. Just going to take a couple seconds here. I can see in my other camera here that my tortilla strip is dancing. Let's switch over to them and we'll get this started. So this is exactly what you want, just like a nice little gentle bubble. This isn't going crazy, but this is going to toast these guys nicely. We're just going to start kind of putting them in, sprinkling them around like so. And we're just going to try and keep this all in one layer. Be careful. Don't splash any of the oil up onto yourself. And we're just going to let them sizzle in here for about 2 to 3 minutes with each batch. And then while those are going, I'm looking for my little spider so I can fish them out. And I'm going to want a little plate with some towel on it so that I can let these guys kind of drain. So let me grab this small plate. We'll set it right there. And I don't have any towels, so it's fine. So here we go. These guys are crisping up nicely. I can feel with the spider that they're nice and crispy, so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of fish them out, drain them as best I can here, and just over onto my little plate. We'll just do that in a couple of batches, then we'll put our next set of tortilla strips in there. This is the same way if you wanted to make your own tortilla chips. You could just cut these into wedges, whatever size you wanted, and go crazy. There we go, second batch. Again, this is kind of filling the time that we're waiting for the chicken to finish cooking in the soup. So this is just kind of making things more efficient. If you notice that some of your corn tortilla pieces didn't quite get cut all the way through, you can go ahead and just peel them off here and just make sure that everything is separated. You can see the one right there that actually is still together. See if I can get it separated here. There we go. Perfect. Now the tortilla strips that we've taken out, while they're still warm, we're going to grab some salt and give them a little bit of seasoning. So we got these guys, we're just going to sprinkle from a high, and the oil is actually going to help the salt stick. And then of course, gotta taste them, and they are delicious. Batch 2, almost ready. In we come. Pop them off. Onto our draining plate. And we'll go in with our next batch as well. There we go. You'll notice I'm not fussing too much about the small pieces that I'm not able to get out. You know, you can worry about that if you want. But I got more important things to think about, like how delicious this is going to taste when it's done. Go ahead and get our second batch in. They're crossing a few places, but you don't want to like lump them in there. It's just not going to work very well. Go. Add a little bit more salt to our plate here behind us. I'll move it in front of the camera so you guys can see what's going on. There we go. A few more minutes on these guys, and I think that's enough for the 3 of us. I might toast the rest of them afterwards. Our soup is still going a little crazy, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit more. And then give it another stir just to make sure things aren't sticking. Smells delicious and amazing. Definitely gonna make some gravy. Yes, yes. Celebratory champagne, celebratory beer, celebratory chicken tortilla soup. Mm-hmm. These guys are looking good. We'll go ahead and scoop them out. Over onto the plate. I'll give that a little bit more seasoning, then we'll go taste our soup. See how that's coming. Also check our chicken, see if it's cooked through. And if it is, we can start shredding it. There we go. Get our gas off. Last bit of seasoning for our tortilla strips, which look fantastic, by the way. And back over to the cutting board. Tasty. Alright, let's kind of get our stuff out of the way. I'm going to go grab a different plate so that I can shred my chicken and not have it get juice all over the cutting board. Never a good look. Nice high-sided plate so that all juices will accumulate and we can pour them right back into the soup. Let's grab one of our chickens. This one looks good. You'll notice that a lot of the browning has come off, and that is now flavoring our broth. I'm gonna go ahead and just peel that skin off. Give it to your dogs, toss it in the dark garbage, put it in your compost pile. I'm not sure if you can compost skin. I have no idea. Sounds kind of gross. Just gonna go ahead and put our chicken here. Our tender came off as well. I'm going to leave this simmering while we're dealing with this. This is super hot, so what I'm going to do is actually use 2 forks. We're going to fork this bird. All right, so I'm going to go to the thickest part of the chicken, which is like right up here, and we're going to start peeling it apart. So a little bit on the verge here, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and shred it and then toss it back in the pot because it will cook. And we're just going to take our 2 forks and just use one to kind of hold the chicken that you're shredding stationary, and use the other one to pull the other bits apart. And then if you want to get thinner and thinner, you can absolutely do that. If you like your chicken strips a little bit more chunky, just leave them the size that they are. Remember, food is all about what you like. Go ahead and peel this apart and grab these individual bits, just shred them down a little bit more. This is the boring part of the program where you get to watch me shred chicken. So, instead of doing that, I might switch you over to my guests and have them talk a little bit more about their adventures. So, tell us, where was your favorite place to go on your adventure into the great beyond?
The great beyond.
Yes, the rest of the country. What was the most scenic place that you guys went, that you guys really enjoyed?
Oh, there are so many. You know, we spent 8 months, 9 months roaming around the 5 or 6 southwestern, northwestern states. And I guess I'd have to say, for me, probably the highlight, Olympic Peninsula and the national park there, where you're walking amidst beautiful mosses and ferns and incredible imaginary creatures that are all over the landscape there. It just made it so fun. I'd say probably that was my favorite.
That sounds awesome.
That was the most scenic. Then you have also the Dead Horse Park, which was amazing.
Dead Horse Park.
That's in Utah.
Yes,
So-
right outside of Moab.
Yeah.
Why don't I know you explained it to me, but why don't you explain it to people who might not have been there or heard of it yet? Is it just a park that is full of dead horses, or how did it get its name?
Well, it's not a happy story, but from what we understand, the cowboys or whatever decided to get rid of a lot of the wild horses. They drove them into this canyon and barricaded them
Oof.
and let them starve to death.
Ouch. Not fun. Where is Dead Horse State Park?
It's in Moab, outside Arches.
So, Utah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Definitely has an interesting story associated with it.
It does, and I'm surprised that they would name a park after such a horrific incident, that starving wild horses.
Yeah, that does not sound very cool. But I guess they could have been naming it so that people at least remember the story, so that stuff like that maybe doesn't happen again.
That is true. Also, it's hard to say if it's true or just a folklore type story.
Like
Makes it interesting.
some folklore, some local folklore for the state park.
Yep.
That's kind of cool. Did you guys go to Yosemite on your way out, or did you guys not do that yet?
No, we haven't done Yosemite yet.
You guys did do the Grand Canyon, though.
So, well, there's the contrast, is Dead Horse State Park compared to the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Both of them are in canyon areas. So there's another park actually called the Canyonlands.
Okay.
But the Grand Canyon is awesome for the distance of its views. Dead Horse State Park, you're looking down into the canyon that is formed by the Colorado River, and you are at the overlook standing at the U shape of the Colorado River. So as the Colorado River bends, obviously it digs deeper down into the ground and increases the canyon.
Yeah. Absolutely. That sounds really cool.
Well, so it actually, I'd say, of our favorite places, that's one of the favorites, because the difference between Grand Canyon and Dead Horse is how close you are to the canyon, which
Okay.
sounds funny because in Grand Canyon you're standing on the canyon's edge, but many of the features are a quarter of a mile or a half a mile or 5-7 miles away, whereas at Dead Horse they're 100 yards or 600 yards.
I see. So just because of the sheer size of the Grand Canyon,
Yes.
Yeah,
you don't actually get to experience like
you
right
connect with the Dead Horse Canyon better than you connect with Grand Canyon. Now, if we didn't have the epidemic and they had the mule rides down the bottom of Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
that would have been amazing. But because of the epidemic, naturally, all this ranger-given tours and mule rides or mule train down to the bottom naturally were not happening.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be safe for them to be right there within close proximity of you while you guys are doing a tour.
Well, the beauty of our travels, we were sheltering in place. Basically, we were traveling in our house on wheels. So we did our own cooking, we did our own barbecuing, we were sheltered in place, but we were not stationary. We were able to move around.
That's pretty cool. So rather than being stuck at home, you were stuck at wherever you happened to be.
Exactly, and keep changing the scenery.
That's nice. And then how was it when you guys got to your various RV parks? Was it a lot of people there? Was it super crowded, or was it pretty,
No,
easy
amazingly, the RV parks were adhering to the rules much more than the cities or restaurants. First of all, there's no contact All your reservations were done by phone or internet.
Okay.
As you arrived, you didn't have to go in their office, and basically they tell you, do not come in the office. One person would meet you, you stay in your motorhome, at the window with a mask on, hand you your paperwork, give you the site or escort you to your site, and you get set up. If you're sitting outside, naturally other guests in the park, if they walk by, they would stop, say hello, but you were better than 6, 8, 10 foot apart.
Right.
So there was no personal contact, even though you still visited, but you kept that distance.
That's pretty cool. That actually sounds like they've got a pretty good setup there to take care of that kind of stuff.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Very cool, very cool. All right, so we got our chicken shredded, and we're back to here. I just put the chicken back in. All of the accumulated juices that were on the plate, I also put back in. The chicken was just on the verge of being cooked, so I'm gonna let it kind of simmer for another maybe 5 minutes, and then I know that it will be cooked. And shredding the chicken actually helps with that. Obviously, with more surface area in contact with the fluid, you don't have to worry about the heat getting to the middle of the actual full chicken breast. You can actually, it's just small strips of chicken, so they'll cook through very quickly now. We'll go ahead and just give that a nice little stir. We are just about done. Last thing that we were going to put in is our green onions. Just going to go ahead and sprinkle those in. And then we'll toss our cilantro in after we dish up. Doo-doo-doo. There we go. Stir it through. And of course we're going to give this nice little taste for seasoning, taste for flavor, make sure it's not too spicy to eat. This was a weird week for me. I actually usually cook kind of a test run of these things halfway through the week before, and then that way I know where I want to adjust or what I want to change. This week I didn't actually have all that much time to do that for this recipe. And actually I didn't know what I was cooking until earlier today, so that's fun. So we're going to see how it turns out. This is going to be a full-on fly by the seat of my pants cook-along live. I'll give it a taste. No, it's really good. It's actually super good. Not spicy. A little bit of spice, but not like it's the flavor spice, not the hot spice. So really, really tasty. I'm super excited for that to be done. And it probably is at this point. Nice thick soup. Now you'll notice that this is actually a super thick soup. If you wanted to make it a little bit more watery, just add a little bit more of your chicken stock, chicken broth, whatever you have. That's going to not really change the flavor, but it will affect the spiciness of it. So the more fluid that you put in, the higher the ratio of not spicy stuff to spicy stuff will change that. And depending on how much liquidy, how much viscosity you like in your soup, you might want to add a little bit more of the chicken stock to this as well. But for me, this looks good. How about you guys? What would you like? Soupy soup or chunky soup?
I think in terms of what you got there, it looks perfect for me.
I'll go.
I liked it more liquidy.
We will go ahead and add another scoop or two of our chicken broth.
That's why it's called soup.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Otherwise, it's almost like a chili.
Yep.
There we go. It's a good thing my chicken stock is really good. And that's where making your own chicken stock is actually going to have a bigger effect on this. If you're just using the carton stuff that you can get from the store, it's pretty good, but it's not quite at the level of this chicken stock. When you make your own chicken stock, it's oof, can't compare. Again, that video will be on TikTok and probably in my Instagram stories and everything a little bit later. Okay, give this another taste. Need a little bit more salt. Since we added the chicken stock, chicken broth, and I actually had that pretty low key as far as the amount of salt I had in it, we thinned it out just a bit. So we're gonna add just a touch of salt. Get it back to a good seasoning level. And we'll plate this bad boy up. There we go. Good. Yum, yum, yum. All right. You guys ready for soup?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. Go ahead and plate this up. I'll do Cindy first. So I'll get more chunky on this. Look at that. A little bit more broth to that. Go for a scoop like so. There we go. Now, do you want chunks of avocado or do you want strips of avocado?
I think I can manage strips.
Perfect. So we'll grab a couple of strips here. And I'll do this. There. 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 And then you want extra cilantro, am I right?
Oh, only if you want me to die tonight.
I'll just give our lime, oops, well, that one's gone. Lime wedges a little cut through. Do something like that. You got a nice little bowl of soup there. As I look to all y'all in YouTube land and Facebook and everything, look at that. Delicious chicken tortilla. Ooh, wait a second. That's just chicken soup. Add some tortillas here. You want me to go heavy on the tortillas or light on the tortillas?
Oh, go for it.
All right, we'll go heavy on the tortillas.
It's a tortilla party.
It is a tortilla party.
That is so artistic.
There we go. That looks pretty cool. I'm actually going to take a photo of that real quick before I hand it over, just in case the other two don't come out quite so well, because you never know.
So you were asking about our adventures. One of the other things that we did on our trip, we went to Zion National Park. Our goal was to hit as many of the national parks as we could. And at Zion, there's a section called the Narrows.
Okay.
And you can walk in the creek until about maybe September, when I think the bacterial algae grows too thick and it becomes toxic.
Okay.
But early in the year, you can actually walk in this canyon, and I would say that was probably one of the most fun hikes that we took. We took a lot of really amazing hikes, but that was not only scenic but also really fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I want to go out and do that in a plane at some point. I would love to fly around the country and see kind of what I can see. But right now I'm just happy to vicariously go through you guys. All right, Dad, would you like cilantro in your soup?
Oh, yes.
And light or easy on the tortilla strips?
Well, like you said, tortilla party, go for it.
Tortilla party. This time, since I remembered, I'm going to start with the tortillas.
Well, I mean, whatever.
No. I forgot on Cindy's. I put everything else in first. And there we go.
So speaking of
What's that? Strips or chunks?
It don't matter.
We'll go with a little bit of both. How's that?
So at Bryce, they had a virtual tour that you could take, helicopter, airplane, I don't know. Anyway, it was 3D. You put on 3D goggles.
Okay.
And you're sitting in a seat that has like suspension, and it vibrates and it turns sideways and up and down, sort of like you were in a roller coaster, only you're You know you're sitting in an office. It's just happening.
So like a motion chair.
Yeah. And so we were able to see many of the canyons from that angle.
That sounds really cool
that
too.
that we went to in person and couldn't see from that angle.
That's really neat.
That was a fun experience.
And that one, you were wearing a VR helmet or something along the lines of a VR helmet?
Yeah, yeah.
That is pretty cool. All right, and Dad, I know that you don't like it when soup is lukewarm, so this is absolutely liquid magma hot, still simmering in the pot over there. So if you guys would not mind, go ahead and give it a taste, and we'll see if you guys die, and then I will go ahead and take my taste. I guess I already took my taste, so I know it's not going to kill you.
The folks at the local Mexican restaurant, they got to worry for you.
Amazing.
This is a pretty darn good soup.
Very good.
Not too difficult to make.
Beautiful.
Go ahead and dish myself up some. Switch back over here to...
Oh, the advantages of being in the studio audience.
Oh, I know. You guys are lucky tonight. There we go. Kind of a medium person. I like a half and half with my soup and my filling. A little bit extra right in the middle.
Rob, the chicken is cooked perfectly.
Thank you.
It's not, like sometimes shredded chicken gets kind of dry and chewy.
Yep.
No, your chicken is absolutely beautiful.
Yep. That's part of that was having it come out a little bit undercooked before we shredded it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's totally raw and you try and shred it, you won't be able to. So you have to have it at least, cooked to the point where it's gonna kind of come apart. But even if it is just a little raw, you really only have to put it in there for, another minute, 2 minutes, or whatever. The heat of the broth will absolutely cook through those shredded chicken strips very quickly. Go ahead and strips. This time I'm doing the cilantro first. We're going to see which one looks the best. And we'll do our strips kind of over here. Because as we keep mentioning on this show, the better it looks, the better it tastes. And with this soup, it's going to be warm for a little while longer. So it doesn't matter if you take your time to make this look really epic.
What I like about it, Rob, is that it's so nutritious.
Mm-hmm.
You have such good nutritional elements in there. Makes it not only good for a nice cold rainy day, but also, if somebody's not feeling good or they, got a little bit of the sniffles or whatever, the whole chicken and the broth that you made, very healthy for you.
Absolutely. And it's actually a proven fact that when I make chicken noodle soup, if you are sick, you will be better the next day if you eat my soup.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, it is very tasty. Thank you, Chips. And Etienne, always good to see you all on here. Now, if you didn't want to do the chicken was just kind of an afterthought, really, on this particular soup. You wanted to make this a vegetable soup, like a tortilla and veggie soup. It's already got tomatoes and black beans. Maybe add some pinto beans for that contrast. Throw in something else similar to chicken. Tofu would probably work really good. Zucchini would work as well. So saute some zucchinis down first. So this is definitely a really, really versatile dish, depending on whether you are a vegetarian or like to eat meat. I'm trying to think if this is vegan. Did we use anything that was, apart from the chicken, was there anything that we used that has meat products in it that would make it not vegan?
The broth.
The broth was chicken broth, but you could easily make your own vegetable broth. But good point, thank you for bringing it up. Anything else? I don't think so. I think as long as you change the broth to like a veggie broth or a veggie stock, That I would 100% make yourself, because the stuff you get at the store is going to taste really watered down. And it's super, super simple. Just chop things up, toss them in a pot, and boil them with water. And that's how you basically get that done. Got a couple of strips here of avocado. And we are good to go. Too spicy? Spicy? Really good? What do you guys think? I know, Cindy, you're not a super
just
huge fan.
right. It's great.
Yeah. It's not making my ears itch from the inside out.
Is that the tell when something's too hot?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Let's do it there. Do one more right next to it. But yeah, you could definitely turn this into a vegan dish. You could definitely turn this into a vegetarian dish. Or you can eat it as is, or use beef or lamb if you prefer. You can shred those just as well. There we go. Just do just a little bit more cilantro right on top.
We'll be over next week for the beef tortilla soup.
Ha! I don't want you guys to lose your cooking edge, so I might kick you out until Thanksgiving. There we go. Look at that. Delicious. We'll just cut one more lime here. Now let's do... Yes, we'll put one lime right in the middle like so. We'll put one on the back corner like so. Looks good to me. I think that's going to be my Instagram shot. Go ahead and get this kind of cleaned up as best I can.
Looks like a party in a bowl.
Absolutely. Does it taste like a party in a bowl?
I believe it does.
Well, then I have succeeded. Cool. Let's take my Instagram shot, and then if you guys want to give this a try, I highly, highly recommend it. This was a super, super simple dish to make. Not really even that many elements. A lot of it was just waiting for it to simmer here on the range. Doing the tortilla strips and everything kind of on the side, yeah, that's an extra step. If you wanted to make your own broth, yeah, that's another extra step. But you can take care of all of that days in advance and store it in the fridge until you're ready to go. So if you're doing this for like a larger party or a group of friends, you can just throw it together right at the end. With all the different elements, and you'll be good to go. The tortilla strips you could do a day in advance, 2 days in advance, throw them in a plastic bag, throw some salt in there, shake them up. It's a great way to get things seasoned. But yeah, give it a try. Let me know. Post on my comment on the video, comment on Facebook. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you try it. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok, and I will see you on next week's Cook Along Live. Have a great night, everybody.
Right.
Bye.